You think betrayal knocks politely. No. It creeps in quietly. Over lunch breaks, coffee dates, and stolen smiles you were never meant to see. Today's story will take you inside one husband's ordinary day turned devastating discovery. One photo, one lunch break, and his world came crashing down. Welcome to Breakup, Cheater, where everyday lives unravel, secrets crawl out from the shadows, and betrayal wears a familiar face. Here we don't just tell stories. We open the door to the moments that change everything. If you think it can't happen to you, think again. The office clock ticked with an unforgiving rhythm as Daniel closed yet another spreadsheet. Numbers blurred before his eyes. His head pounding from the monotony of a Tuesday that seemed to stretch endlessly. When the clock struck noon, he welcomed the excuse to step away from his desk, craving the warm comfort of a meal that wasn't microwaved leftovers. He grabbed his coat, keys, and phone. His office was just a 10-minute drive from the cafe his wife, Hannah, had recently fallen in love with. She mentioned it often. How the lattes were perfect, how their croissants reminded her of Paris. She worked only a few blocks away, and they rarely had lunch together, but today, on a whim, he thought, why not surprise her? The idea carried a sweetness to it, an unexpected gesture in a marriage that had been running on autopilot for months. They'd been married for 7 years, comfortable but distant, like two planets orbiting the same sun but rarely crossing paths. Maybe lunch would be a way to reconnect. He didn't text her. He wanted to see her eyes light up when he appeared. The cafe was lively, its windows fogged from the steam of endless cappuccinos. Daniel pushed the door open, the bell chiming above his head, and immediately scanned the room for her dark auburn hair. And then he saw her, Hannah, sitting by the window, her hand resting over another man's. The world around him dimmed. The chatter faded. Time thickened into something viscous, clinging to his chest as he struggled to breathe. The man across from her was leaning in. His smile soft, intimate. Hannah's lips curved in a way Daniel hadn't seen in months. Not the polite smile she gave him in passing, but one that reached her eyes. She lifted her hand to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, and the man brushed his fingers over her wrist, a touch too casual to be innocent. Daniel stood frozen by the counter, half hidden by a pillar. No one in the cafe noticed him. He could have turned around, could have left without a word, but something inside him, curiosity, rage, a need for truth, rooted him there. Who is he? The man was well dressed, his watch gleaming under the light, his face unfamiliar. Hannah laughed at something he whispered, and the sound splintered through Daniel's chest like glass. He pulled out his phone and, with shaking hands, snapped a photo. His mind raced. Was this just lunch? A harmless meeting? But the way her fingers lingered, the softness in her eyes. It wasn't harmless. It wasn't friendship. His appetite vanished. He left without ordering. Back at the office, Daniel shut himself in his car and stared at the photo. His wife's betrayal stared back at him, captured in pixels, one frozen moment of truth. He didn't confront her right away. Instead, he scrolled through her messages that night while she showered. Nothing. No texts, no suspicious calls. She had always been careful, too careful. The next day, he drove to the cafe again during lunch. They weren't there. The day after that, nothing. But on Friday at 12:15 sharp, there she was again. Same table, same man, same secret smile. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. This time he walked inside. Hannah! Her name cut through the hum of conversation like a blade. She flinched, her eyes wide, color draining from her cheeks. The man looked up, startled, his hand retreating from hers as if burned. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" she stammered, her voice trembling. "I was about to ask you the same thing." Her lips parted, but no words came. The silence stretched, thick with the stares of strangers. The man cleared his throat. "I think I should go." "No," Daniel snapped. I want to know who you are." "Hannah," the man said gently. "Do you want me to?" His name is Ethan, she cut in, her voice barely above a whisper. He's a friend. Daniel's laugh was bitter, hollow. A friend. Do all your friends hold your hand across the table like that? She looked down, her hands trembling as she clasped them in her lap. Daniel, it's not what it looks like. It looks like you're betraying me, he said, his voice low, even, but laced with something far more dangerous than shouting, calm fury. People were watching. He could feel their eyes, their curiosity prying at the edges of his humiliation. He hated that. He leaned closer. Go home. We'll talk there. The ride home was silent. Hannah sat stiffly in the passenger seat, her fingers twisted in her lap. Daniel drove with a grip so tight on the steering wheel that his knuckles still ached when they pulled into the driveway. Inside, he set his phone on the counter, the photo of her and Ethan glaring from the screen. How long? He asked. She flinched. Daniel. Wow. Long. Tears welled in her eyes. A few months, she whispered. He felt something inside him break, quietly like a branch under too much snow. Not a violent snap, just a slow, inevitable give. Why? His voice cracked despite his best effort to keep it steady. Was I not enough? She shook her head, her hands covering her face. It's not that. You've been distant. Always working, always tired. And Ethan, he listened. He made me feel seen again. Daniel's laugh came out bitter, jagged. So that's it. You felt unseen, so you crawled into someone else's arms. I didn't mean for it to happen, she cried. It started with coffee, then lunches. I thought I could stop, but you didn't. She lowered her hands, her eyes red. I'm sorry. Sorry. The word felt empty, like an echo in a hollow room. That night, Daniel lay awake staring at the ceiling while Hannah slept on the couch downstairs. Memories flickered through his mind. Birthdays, anniversaries, lazy Sunday mornings. How many of those moments had already been poisoned by her betrayal without him knowing? He thought about confronting Ethan, about screaming, about throwing her out. But what would that fix? Anger wouldn't rebuild trust. Rage wouldn't rewind time. Instead, he did something that surprised even himself. The next day, during his lunch break, he walked into the cafe one last time, alone. Ethan was there, sitting by the window, waiting. Daniel sat down across from him. You don't know me, Daniel said quietly. But you know my wife. Ethan swallowed hard. Daniel, Save it, Daniel cut in. I'm not here to fight. I just want you to know what you've been part of. 7 years of marriage. 7 years of building something I thought was real. Ethan's face paled. I didn't know it would go this far. She said things were over between you two. Daniel's jaw tightened. They weren't. But they are now. He stood, leaving the younger man stunned, and walked out without looking back. When Daniel filed for divorce a week later, Hannah begged him to reconsider. She promised to cut things off, to go to therapy, to rebuild. But trust, once shattered, isn't easily glued back together. I can forgive a mistake, he told her quietly as he packed his things. But you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. Over and over again. She wept, clinging to his sleeve, but he didn't stay. Months passed. Friends called him strong, even brave, for how calmly he'd handled it all. But in the quiet of his new apartment, strength didn't feel like what he carried. It felt like emptiness. Like an ocean of what-ifs he had to learn to swim through. Sometimes he wondered if he'd made the right choice. If staying and trying to fix it would have been easier than starting over. But every time he remembered the look in her eyes across that cafe table, the softness meant for someone else. He knew the truth. The man he was before that lunch break had died that day. What remained was someone sharper, lonelier, but perhaps freer. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's silent, measured, and devastating. Daniel didn't throw punches, didn't beg, didn't burn the house down. He exposed the truth and walked away. Tell me, if you caught your spouse cheating on your lunch break, would you have done the same? Or would your reaction shock them even more? You've just heard one story, but behind every closed door, there are 100 more waiting to be told. Subscribe to Breakup Cheater, where the truth bleeds through the cracks, and every ending leaves a scar. What would you do if it happened to you?